Hello, I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter at Risk for Rewards. Currently got around 17,000 followers over there, and that's where you find plenty of my Cheltenham content. Obviously, we've got about, I think, 1,200 subscribers over here, which is good because we've only really been going for about 4 weeks now. If you'd like to subscribe, it's down at the bottom. Then you get a notification every time that I upload a video, just like this one today. This is part two of 4 parts of the Cheltenham Festival review. So today we're going to do the Wednesday Cheltenham review and go through all of Wednesday's races, go through a little look at what we could be looking at for possibly the 2024 festival, but also who may run between Aintree and Punchestown, and just my general thoughts on each race individually and any eye catchers that I found. I'm trying to keep these short, so I'm going to get straight to the racing, and there will be apologies if there is little emotion in this. It's not that I don't think that the performance was fantastic or brilliant. It's just the fact that I know most of you were either at the festival or you've watched it all at much better coverage on things like ITV. So you don't need me telling you about how good things were. We're just trying to make money on them. So anyway, straight to the Ballymore. So Ballymore Festival. Right then. I'm going to start from the bottom and go from the disappointments first. So Hermes Allen was subject of an absolute mammoth gamble. It doesn't sound like a big gamble, but he was 11-2 the night before, 5-1 general, and he ended up getting sent off 9-4 favourite. So that would be a big gamble on a Saturday, but on a Wednesday of Cheltenham after the punters had their pockets filled on the Tuesday as well, and the bookies as well, that is a very, very big move, especially for a Challow winner who were obviously 0 for 18 in the race. I've got no idea what happened in the race. Paul Nicholls hasn't said that there's been any sort of abnormality post-race, but it clearly was nothing like his running. He travelled well, he jumped well, he looked everything was very similar in the Challow, and apparently he was trading around 5-4 in running, but he just emptied, found nothing, and just disappeared out the back of the TV to finish 20 lengths beaten. That clearly was not his running, and I 100% would not be writing him off whatsoever for next year. Um, like he could be a huge player. Obviously, the issue would be, let me just have a little check what prices be while I'm talking. Your concern would always be the fact that because he's flopped at Cheltenham, now is one would Paul Nicholls. Oh, brilliant! Odds checker's not working. One would Paul Nicholls bring him back for the same event next year. Well, obviously not the same event, but would he bring him back to Cheltenham next year, having flopped? And two, is it an issue that he's got with the track rather than just a? For me, maybe it was the fact that the Challow actually took a lot more out of him than we expected, because not all horses recover at different speeds and stuff, and that was an absolute monster performance. Like you look at the numbers, and it was a 154 performance, beating You Wear It Well 4 3/4 lengths, and obviously You Wear It Well absolutely bolted up in the Mares hurdle. I know she's got the run of the race, but still, it's the Mares novice hurdle, but it's still no easy feat to win that sort of event. So I'd just throw his run in the bin. He's 20-1 for the Brown Advisory next year, so I'd have that in the corner of your eye just in case. He looks like the sort of horse that Paul Nicholls will throw in the Quarter Star at Christmas as his 3 mile novice chaser. So the same race that Brave Man's Game won the year before the King George, and he's tailor made for the standard Paul Nicholls sort of horse for that event. He said he's going chasing, in theory, but right now it's not worth doing anything with. You may as well wait. Will he be at Aintree, Punchestown? We'll wait and see. And if not, just wait to see what Nicholls says, because he's not a horse that's suddenly going to get backed after that disappointment. He's currently 20-1 for the Brown Advisory. In fourth, Goodland, obviously subject to plenty of money due to Barry Connell saying that they were both certainties and his other one won. I thought he travelled very well. He was going very easy, prominent throughout, and did very little wrong, but he was just beaten. As simple as it was, he just didn't find what was required to go through with his effort and beat these other horses. I mean, the front two, I'm not surprised. Champ Kylie, maybe he could have got close to, but at the end of the day, you look at his Group 1 win at the Dublin Race Festival, and he was beating horses like Absolute Lotion, Sandor, Clegane, and I can't remember who the other horse was. It might be a Favourite. No, it wasn't. Another Gigginstown horse, and they're all 3 milers. So could a step up and trip further be on the cards for him, up to 3 miles? He's another who may well end up over fences, but I wouldn't be writing him off. But at the same time, he's clearly not as good as I don't think they were saying. Oh, well, Mikey O'Sullivan said afterwards. He said, "Oh, he felt a bit flat." So okay, maybe that might be the case. Maybe he's got a lot more to come. But me personally, I think that was his level over this trip. So stepped up to 3 miles, he might find more improvement, or he may be still a very good horse, just he's not as good as the horses in front of him. Champ Kylie did very little wrong. He's just an admiral sort. He just runs his race every time. He enjoys leading. The issue is that he was hanging, which obviously, if he was going the opposite way round, if he was going around a right-handed track, it would make it a lot easier when he's hanging right. I wouldn't write him off, and if he gets that soft, easy lead in a race, then he's going to take some beating. Like Willie Mullins is going to have to do well to spread all these out. But fortunately, at Punchestown, it's over, I think it's 6 days of festival, and they have about 1 million hurdle races over different trips. So he may well get to spread them out and only have one or two in each race. But I definitely wouldn't lose faith on him, and he wasn't far behind, considering how impressive the winner was. He was only 7 lengths behind him. So I definitely wouldn't write him off, and obviously he's a Group 1 winner himself. But it's hard to see him being a top level, as in a Cheltenham Festival winner next year, unless he brings about improvement either for a fence or for a step up in trip. Because I can't imagine going down in trip's going to suit him, despite how keen he is. And obviously, he only just lost second to Gaelic Warrior, who again he jumped a lot better. He travelled very well, but he still is very keen. He's a quirky type, I'd best say. And again, even though he jumped better, he still hung. Like I said, not like he did last year, but he was still hanging right-handed. And he's another that will suit a right-handed track. So I think Gaelic Warrior for me is a horse that will be a lot better. Probably I said this before the festival. He's probably a £5 to £10 horse better away from Cheltenham. I just think Cheltenham couldn't suit him less. Obviously, left-handed track, it's quirky, it's got undulations, whereas I think he just wants a simple, basic right-handed track. Just like I say just like, obviously he didn't even enjoy the Dublin Race Festival because that was going left-handed as well, but he was just too good for them. But if you're going to Group 1 level, you can't afford to be given £5 or £10 to the opposition, which is what he did today. And then the winner in Perry Pass looked tailor-made champion hurdle horse for next year. Very impressive. Possibly, let's just check the rating that I've got up here. I think he's a pound higher than it. Yeah, he's 163 to Marine National's 162, and that's probably about right. I don't think there'll be a lot in it between them. If you ask Barry Connell, he'd say obviously his would win, but in reality, I think it'd be a hell of a fight. And if depending on the prices and stuff, I think Impero Pass could be the even drop back to 2 miles. I think he'd take some beating. Obviously, if he went to the Turners, then he'd take some beating there. But it just depends on what their plan is. He's clearly, the fact that he won the Moscow Flyer over 2 miles means that he's very versatile, and a lot more of the sexy trips are going back in trip towards 2 miles rather than going up. So again, though, the problem is he's hostage to Constitution Hill. So depending on what Constitution Hill does, if Constitution Hill decides to go over fences, that's perfect for this horse because he'll go to the Champion Hurdle, and I think he'll be a strong contender in that sort of market. Over fences, it's hard to position where he might go because obviously he could drop back, but he's got to drop back 5 furlongs if he goes to the Arkle. Or he could go to the Turners, obviously over 2 mile, 4 furlongs. But it's not really a race that Mullins has targeted too much in the past. It's normally Gordon Elliott that's targeted the Turners. I don't think he really sees it as that prestigious an event. Obviously, he won it he didn't win it because Galloping fell, but he targeted Galloping Deschamps on it. But that was with a view to going up to 3 miles. So Impero Pass, with the amount of speed he's got, it wouldn't look like he's going for that sort of direction. I'd say this will be as far as he'll go. It'll either be the Turners again, or he'll be going back towards the Arkle or the Champion Hurdle. But again, it's just, if you could split him, Impero Pass and Constitution Hill up, then okay, you're fairly easy to see how strong they would be good bets to have in their races. The issue is, like, will you? So no one knows where Constitution Hill goes. He could end up taking on Marine National at the Dublin Race Festival, and that'd be very interesting. But I just have this feeling that he could be a very, very good horse. I think Marine National is, but I think this one could be a very good horse. And I did say in my preview, that I thought this was one of the top two and could well be the better one of him and Facile Vega. Obviously, he might not be better than Facile Vega because I haven't raced, but I'm just going on the fact that I think that could be the case. And if he was in the race instead of Facile Vega in the 2 miles, it'd have been interesting to see how he got on. But obviously this trip suited perfectly, and the way he quickened, and it was more the way the race was ran. And as I said before, the Ballymore is you slowly build up, and then you turn a foot's used, and I think that's what suits this horse perfectly. He enjoys that last, and coming to the hill, he was still hanging on the bridle, and then when he hit the button, he was gone, and he was very, very impressive, and arguably the best novice of the week. Again, we're just waiting on Constitution Hill. Let us know where he's going, Nicky, and then we can all start placing our bets. Yeah, you're not going to get brilliant prices and stuff, but you've got 6 months to get him in roll-up bets, accumulators, and all sorts. Where he's the last one, put him in free bets. If it's a 5-to-1 shot, if you're putting £5, £10 free bets on him every week, it's not going to matter whether he's a 5-to-1 shot. At least you've got him on side, and then you can back away wherever you want to elsewhere. Brown Advisory, Jesus. So the Brown Advisory and the Turners, Arkle, brilliant. 2 horses came to the fore. Brown Advisory and the Turners, like, you may as well just, like, basically, I'll just concentrate on the Brown Advisory. The horse that won the race was the best jumper and the best jockey, and everyone must have known this was coming. Like, I could have seen it a million miles away. Every single person would have known this is exactly what the real whacker was going to do. He was going to go out, he was going to take a lead, and he was going to jump brilliantly, and that's exactly what he did. And they've just got schooled by the English jockeys on both occasions for the 2 races. He made all, he led. They got close to him. He got pushed for a bit by Brom, which would have been the plan. Brom ran an absolute massive race, obviously at 50-1 for Willie Mullins. And arguably, you'd say, should he have been in the 3-miler? I don't think he should. I think he was put in here because he didn't know who else to send in here. And he should have been in the 2-mile 4, but it was only because he thought he obviously had a strong hand with Appreciate It. And who was the other horse? James de Burley. So I think Bron should have been in the 2-mile 4 because I don't know whether he didn't stay or he just got to a point where he's pushing the real whacker and then he didn't find much more. Obviously, I did say about the real whacker would be a very, very solid bet, but at the same time, I couldn't see him beating Jerry Colomb because Jerry Colomb would be in Elliott's top 10, whereas the horse that went toe-to-toe with the real whacker, Indigo Breeze, wouldn't. So obviously that was only one line of form, and this horse just did everything you'd ask from him. Just jumped, stayed, and won well. Jerry Colomb, Jordan Gainford got a lot of abuse. Like, when I was on track, everyone was saying Davy Russell would have won this. Davy Russell, like, me personally, I don't think Davy Russell would have won anything last week. Like, I'm not one to insult anyone or say anything negative about someone, especially not as a person, because there's nothing on Davy Russell as a person. I just think over the last 2-3 years, I think the Davy Russell 3 years ago, like, yeah, of course, I would have no doubt whatsoever. Like, but I thought Jordan Gainford, it was a very tricky ride, and I think that's why they kept him on there, because it was a tricky ride at Sandown. And I thought because he got the job done, that's why they kept him on. I don't really know who would have won on him on that. Probably AP McCoy, because it seemed like he just was a very complicated horse in the fact that he didn't jump very well. So the real whacker was probably taken out, even though they were miles apart. If you put them alongside, he was probably taking half length out of him each run. And it wasn't until he really, like, he was trying to get stuck into him, but then the jumping was just, he's just an okay jumper, whereas the real whacker is a really good jumper. And he was keeping on strongly. He rallied and rallied and rallied, but it was just obviously, yeah, okay, he was probably 2 or 3 inches. He could have literally gone 2 or 3 inches further and he's up rather than down. So everyone will always blame the jockey in that situation. For me, Jerry Colomb, I don't really know where he stands. I think he's going to be one of them that, a bit like the National Hunt Chase type. I think he's going to want maybe a bog, or he's going to want further. Like, he doesn't strike me as a natural Gold Cup horse. Yeah, okay, the extra 2 furlongs would be great, but that's an extra 2 furlongs to get past the real whacker. Like, where would the real whacker have finished if he raced in the Gold Cup this year? Like, I know they're aiming for it next year, and he's only a 7-year-old and mature. And I'm not coming on here to slate horses, but I just don't think he's to that level. And I look behind, and I think the horse to take out of it for me, Time Hill is just not really a chaser in my opinion. But the horse to take out of it for me is Sir Gerhard. I thought the money was quite significant. The fact that obviously he went from about 8s into about 6s the day before. And then on the day, he went from about 5-1 all the way into 5-2 and then settled about 3-1 because obviously Jerry Colomb was very solid in the betting. He jumped very stickily and very not well at all in the first circuit, which is what you'd expect for a horse having only a second chase start. But it was like he almost had 2 novice chase starts in one run, because the first circuit he was very like getting into it. But second circuit he was really beginning to find his feet, and you saw him coming in around the bend. I thought, hang on a minute, like he could well go close here. Once he got his jumping going, but I just thought, this is my own opinion, I thought he didn't stay. I didn't know whether that is because he took so much out of himself by jumping so poorly in the first half of the race that he didn't have anything left, or it's the fact that he needs to drop back in trip. Obviously, I said he was Turner's horse, and I still think if he'd run in the Turners, he could have gone close in the Turners. because his best part of the race was just before the hill. So like I don't know, say 7 fences out to about 2 fences out. It was just once he got to the hill, he just had nothing left. He wasn't given a particularly hard race. And that poor jumping through the first circuit probably took plenty out of him on the soft ground. So the jury's not out on him. I've still got him in the back of my mind. I'd keep an eye on him, see where he goes next, and see what the plan is. But again, the beauty is with this is there's quite a few this year of big names where they've not been given particularly hard races when their time's up. And he was another one, like as in they could have really pushed and pushed and pushed, but they just saw that the other horses were too far clear, and they were like, "I'm not going to. It is what it is." So yeah, keep an eye on him going forward. Coral Cup, and obviously don't forget he's a two-time Cheltenham winner. Coral Cup, Langadan, so frustrating because obviously we all knew this was the plan, but it's just one of those where you just see the way they run. Like I look back through his form, third of four, 8.5 lengths behind Dashwood Drasher in a Grade 2, and you think that's his level. Then he's beaten 11 lengths by Romeo Brown, then 35 lengths by Maurice Rock. And in reality, all they were doing is just bringing that handicap mark beautifully down, ready for a big tilt. And it was obvious, but at the same time, you always question, are they actually doing that, or are they? And obviously, with the Scotland Yard, they are actually doing that, and they've done it to perfection. I mean, he got up by a head that you can't get any more perfection. I do think he was a fortunate winner in the fact that I think the actual winner should have been Camprond. Camprond was one of the most ridiculous market moves. He was one I flagged up in the early anti-post columns. I said he was 25 to 1 at the time. He was racing off the same mark, or he'd be about a pound difference because the weights went out at the time. And he went from 25 to 1 once the weights were released. He went all the way into 5 to 1. And then on the day, he drifted all the way back out to 20 to 1. And it's a crazy market move, obviously because the ground was soft and they were saying he wanted good ground. Like he ran an absolute belting race. And I generally, well, one, I thought they went for home too soon. And two, is the fact that when he went for home, he got to that final hurdle and he steadied him into it. If he'd gone like a Sam Twiston Davis ride, he'd gone for that first final hurdle and just gone, let's go for it. If you wing it, perfect. If you don't, then obviously like we're going to stumble a bit and we might. But he just steadied him into it, almost like as if you're like, I'm 10 lengths clear, I'm going to win this. He steadied him into it, and it wasn't massively, but it was enough to open the door to say you've got another chance. And he rallied all the way to the line, but to only be beaten half a length, so he was ahead. He was a neck behind second, and obviously second was a head behind Langadan. So he was beaten less than half a length, and he had the rail. So I just think if he'd not steadied him into it and he'd thrown him over it, that was Cambrons to lose. So what the plan will be, I'd imagine, is he'll go to Punchestown, and he's on 138 there. So he's gone up £5, but he won at Punchestown last year off a mark of 137. So it'll be interesting to see if he runs off 143 again over obviously in Ireland. Maybe he's up against it a little bit more, but he'll get his good ground, which he'll favour. Scaramanga was a big eye catcher. Obviously, Willie Mullins is strange because when he was, I'm sure it was Paul Nicholls, and they've been talking about him needing good ground, and he ran a big race here considering the ground was soft. So he may be one for end of season handicaps, especially as he was 50 to 1 here. So he may well go under the radar. He's 147. So his Irish is 145, so he'll be running off £2 less over in Ireland. Obviously, it's more competitive, but I'd keep him on your tracker definitely. So Scaramanga for the Punchestown Festival if he goes in a handicap, because he could well go off quite a big price if Willie's got a few shorter priced ones in there. Obviously, Langadan has gone up from 141. He hasn't gone up yet. Not sure what one Langadan's going to go off at, but obviously this was his day. On to the Queen Mother Champion Chase. Oh, another year, another blowout. Like really, really, like we just keep getting disappointing Champion Chases. This used to be my favourite race of the whole meeting. This is one of the reasons I started getting into horse racing, like watching the likes of Shishkin and stuff mature from the Arkle. Sorry, not Shishkin. Sprinter Sacre mature from the Arkle, and then take on the big boys and absolutely hose up. Like it's another brilliant performance by Enna Gamine, don't get me wrong, but you just had that feeling when you got to the track and it was raining, it was murky, and it was exactly the same as the year before, just a little less wet. And you just thought this is Enna Gamine and Delta Works Day for the taking, and it was exactly the same. Like I don't know what the situation was with Edwardstone, but he got very well backed and he was almost 6 to 4 at the start before the festival began. And then on the day he was out towards like 9 to 4 in the day, and he just ran like no race whatsoever. And the same with Editor de G. Obviously he was in from 5 to 1 and out to 13 to 2. And both of them, it's like they ran their race at the Clarence House Chase because they had absolutely nothing here. They were complete no shows. That was the 28th of Jan, so that was 6 weeks ago. So a lot of horses normally take 3 to 4 weeks. And bearing in mind that was also it was on soft ground and it was a hard race. To be fair, Ennigamine didn't feature in the hard part of the race because he's clattered the last so badly when both two went because that's the bit that takes out of a horse. They both went hammer and tong coming after the last, so maybe that was enough that they left their mark there. But yeah, both of them complete no shows. Edwardstone, problem is for him, he's now going to be will he be a 10-year-old? He's 9-year-old. June, yeah. So he's going to be a 10-year-old. So it's hard to see him winning a champion chase as a 10-year-old. Obviously, Ennigamine will be a 10-year-old, but he's a two-time champion chase winner. So the one thing you say about Ennigamine is he turns up on the day, but he's also getting his perfect conditions. He loves other horses. It's not that he's much worse of a horse. It's just the fact that he maintains or keeps that same form when others can't, if that makes sense. So what I'm trying to say is Ennigamine, say, can run to a 170, whether it's good to firm or soft ground, whereas others may run to, say, a 165 because the ground's heavier. He just ploughs through the mud and he loves it. So, yeah, no issues, and he won easily again. Greenatine, I never said he's a Cheltenham horse anyway. Like, I mean, if you back Nuba Negro, this is really your sort of race where you should be like, oh, this is his time. But as everyone, well, I can understand people putting that horse up like it had zero chance, to be honest, whether it was soft or good ground. Captain Guinness, that's a Group 2 horse all day. Like, as in, to finish second in the champion chase, that deserves an award in itself. And just as testament to how good Henry's horses ran all week, the fact that they finished second in the champion chase, that is his pinnacle, in my opinion. That's not a Group 1 winning chaser. Like, he's been finishing, like, you look back to the days when he was getting hammered by Shishkin and stuff in the Arkle, like he's just not that sort of level. He'll finish second in probably a Group 2 or a Group 3 in 6 weeks' time. So that's a brilliant result for Connections. Cross country, oh, apologies. The cross country is beginning to be what we've expected it to be. Gordon Elliott, this whole training thing where he's allowed to go and do his private schooling and take his chasers over there, like whatever he's doing, he's literally nailing it to absolute perfection. Because these two ran a tailor-made race to what Tiger Roll and Deltwork did. Obviously, last year it was Deltwork's first time, but he literally matched Tiger Roll jump for jump, hurdle for hurdle, and exactly the same as Galvin did here. Both of their jumping, it was like that, bang, 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 the whole way around. And then it, in my opinion, due to the ground. If it was good ground, I think Galvin, I don't know whether he would have won. I think he could have won. But the fact that it had gone to the soft side, it was Delta Works for the taking coming up that straight. And he did exactly the same as what he did to Tiger Roll. I don't think Delta Work would win impressively regardless. But I mean, it just looks so difficult. Unless Elliott's going to pull another one of his old Gold Cup horses and bring them through. Obviously, Willie Mullins was trying to do similar, like with Franco Deport, and the money came mad for him, like 9-2. For Franco Deport, like whereas he wasn't even, he was barely in the betting in the weeks leading up to it. You wouldn't even know that he was in the race, and then the money's just kept coming and coming. He opened at 4-1, but like he was beaten 28.5 lengths, and that just shows the gap of how much there is between those front two, and it's almost impossible to not see if they both obviously go again. I know they'll both be another year older, being a 10 and 9-year-old already. They're going to take all the beating. So it's just going to be flip your coin and take your pick. For me, if it's good ground, probably Galvin. But he's also got years. He's got the experience. My biggest thing with Galvin was the fact I was worried about his experience. That was the same for Deltwork the year before. But Elliott's obviously perfected this routine that experience is no longer becoming an issue. So yeah, I just think Gordon Elliott's going to win this again and again and again unless they make it a handicap. Onto Grand Annual, not a race I really want to spend too much time on. You'd have to say Dino Blue wasn't unlucky, but if she jumps the last two better, like she's going to come very close, if not obviously winning the race. Um, but at the end of the day, jumping's the name of the game. Henry de Bromhead, another masterclass. This horse has been up and down, not been the best. And you look at the form figures. 11th last time out, 20 lengths behind the Gotha, but had won the time before. It was just a great handicap positioning, and he had him perfect for the day. And it just sums up Henry de Bromhead again for his week. Absolutely brilliant training performance. Global Citizen, which was my selection in the race, back to 20s into 12s and finished third. Very, very solid off the same sort of mark. And it just shows, this is why I thought it was so tailor-made to the year before, in the fact that you look at the results and you've got Ennigamine first again, Deltwork first again, and then Global Citizen, yeah, okay, finished third, But like that's in a handicap that's got, I don't know, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19 runners. That's a massive run. The other one that was so frustrating, which, okay, might not have won, may have won, was my Time White selection. So Time White, I backed Ange Post at 20 to 1, drifted out to 28 to 1 because of the ground, and many thought the ground would be against him, as in no chance. But he was travelling so well coming into that bend. And then I was just like, right, this is it. He's got a strong chance. I didn't know whether he was going to like win, but he finds plenty for pressure, as we saw at Ascot. And he came to that jump 2 out, and that was it. And it was like, no. So I think I do think that he would have gone very, very close. Obviously, he definitely would have been in the places. And if you're back in a 20 or a 28 to 1 shot and you're an each way punter, you're absolutely laughing. So it was painful, especially as Nichols had laid this plan out so far in advance, and he would have been desperate for winners at this point. And that was 6 months in the making to only have him to fall. So he could show up at Aintree or whatever, but the argument is, does he still class as fresh, as in as that race took it out of him, or did he still have, as in his head and obviously in his physical ability, will he just say, like, it's hard to know how fresh he'll be, if that makes sense. And a horse that needs to be fresh, that could have been his day. But it'd be hard for me not to back if he's a big price. If he's a short price, it'd be quite easy to just skip over. So yeah, ran good races. On to the Champion Bumper. So this is a good one for talking points. I'll start from the bottom and try and pick out a few further down. So obviously, Chapeau du Soleil had been the talking horse of the season from the Willie Mullins yard. I mean, I got sent it really early days. He's ended up going off 40 to 1 on the day. Bearing in mind he was 16 to 1 at the start of the season. He was backed into about 5 or 6 to 1 before he raced. And then obviously after his debut, he drifted after doing everything wrong on debut. But he was still sat there around 8 or 9 to 1, and the money was still there. And it wasn't until he came here, they were just like, no. But I thought he ran a much better race than obviously what his numbers. He finished 10th. That's only 13 lengths off the finish. And considering he did so much wrong again, he was pushed along, he hung, he was at the back pretty much the whole race. And obviously they didn't want to overburden him. And Brian Hayes gave him just quite a caring ride. And don't be surprised if he's brought along slowly and he's got more to come. He's clearly not the horse that I obviously thought that, well, connections thought that he could be. And I'm not expecting him to go and win the Supreme despite being a 20 to 1 price right now. I mean, that's quite rare to see a 20 to 1 horse when he's just finished 10th in the Champion Hurdle, the Champion Bumper. Western Diego is another selection of mine. Very, very good run, but just so keen, like really, really keen. Still leading, coming to the hill, and still leading, coming to about 2 furlongs out. But got hampered, got pushed along, and then wasn't given a hard time. I wouldn't write him off. Obviously, It's For Me was another one that got smashed in the bet in 25s into 5s. Just didn't really like make too much of an impression. It was a bit free going, just like all of these. A lot of these horses, it's only their second or third run, so it's hard to know what to expect. And like you look at it, the Champion Bumper the form didn't work out this year, but it's not to say this form won't work out because they're only on second or third runs. It just depends how hard a race they had, especially in soft ground. Lecky Watson, very strong traveller, but when asked the question, was just outstayed by a few that were given a rougher ride. Captain Teague stayed on very, very well. Obviously, that was the Paul Nicholls horse, and I think, is it Tom Malone? Basically, the bloodstock agent had said this horse will run a massive race, and like 33s would prefer a bit not soft ground. But I thought that for a Paul Nicholls horse, he ran a massive race in the bumper because he doesn't normally target me, and obviously it was his only runner, sorry. And I think he's still about 33s for I think he's 33s for Supreme and about 25s for Ballymore. So it'd be interesting to see what the plan is with him, and also to see how he comes out of this race. I'm a little bit sceptical after last season where it was again on soft ground, just like last year, and nothing went well after that. Like Facile Vega obviously has won races since, but everything in behind him all bombed. And I know a few didn't run again, like Redemption Day and James's Gate, but the rest, they just absolutely bombed. So I just always have a bit of concern when you have a hard race. And obviously, when you talk about hard race, you look at a Dream to Share and Fact to File. Like the front three really went hammer and tong in that last furlong, like pushing away and giving it hard. Dream to Share got given a brilliant ride, brilliant for connections. John Kiley obviously getting his Cheltenham winner. And JP McManus obviously will be happy the fact that he bought the horse that beat Fact to File. And this, much like the Boodles on the first day, like why people like, well, I say why people, like why someone like myself, why I don't just follow the exact same like path. Like I'm just going to bring up here the past winners of the future novices. So obviously the 1-2 here was the same 1-2 at the Dublin Racing Festival. So you go and look at the winners of the Dublin Racing Festival, and you've got Envoy Allen, Appreciate It, Kilcrut, Facile Vega, and Dream to Share. So obviously Envoy Allen won the champion bumper. Appreciate It. Did he win the champion bumper? I think Appreciate It came second in the champion bumper. I think Kilcrut won the champion bumper. Facile Vega won the champion bumper. Dream to Share won the champion bumper. So basically, they're all finishing in like the first one or two of that race. So you have to wonder, you're like, why are we even worrying? Again, this is another one where you just go, right, okay, what's finished first and second in the Dublin Race Festival? Let's go across and let's back that instead. Keep it simple. So I think there's quite a few pointers, obviously, again, from this for review for if you're watching this, obviously, with a review for next year. I think there's plenty to take out of that champion bumper horses going forward for Aintree and Punchestown. But just remember, you've got to be very sceptical because come Aintree and Punchestown, some of these horses, they may have only had 2 or 3 runs, but that was quite a big run that they've just had, and some will be over the top. So like you'll see horses like it was surprising Facile Vega was okay last time, last season, but generally you'll see like a horse like say, I don't know, Factor File will be turned over by like Lecky Watson or It's For Me, a horse that's maybe saved a bit for himself in the champion bumper when a horse like Factor File's put it all in and then they'll turn him over at the festival. Doesn't mean they're suddenly a bad horse, but obviously you're losing your money on a short price bumper horse. So that's something worth bearing in mind. And the other thing, a lot of people will be looking at this and be like, right, who's going to win the Supreme from these? Who's going to win the Ballymore? Like Fact or File, is he going to go to Ballymore? Will he step up? Because we're talking about him going chasing. And again, is you have to remember, like, look at the horses that at the moment we're looking at in the Supreme and the Ballymore from this year. Like, okay, Facile Vega was seen. Obviously, he finished second. But the likes of Marine Nationale, he hadn't been seen yet. The likes of Impere Pass, some of these horses hadn't even been purchased yet, let alone come to us in the champion bumper. So it's just worth, when you're looking at the Supreme and the Ballymore, like obviously if you want to take a swing like on something like a Captain Teague at 33s and 25s, just measure your stakes because later on, it's come September, October, Willie Mullins, Paul Nicholls, Gordon Elliott, they're all going to start buying these horses, or they're going to have them come across from say France, and they're going to go novice hurdling, or they've got them at home already, they just haven't raced them at the Cheltenham in the Cheltenham bumper, and then they're going to be the horses that are going to be the leading contenders for the champion novice events next year. So just don't guarantee that, obviously, just because these guys have done so well in the bumper, that every year that form is going to convert into a Supreme winner or a Ballymore winner. And if you are going to have a swing at them or back them, just obviously back accordingly so you don't waste all your stake. You can obviously span out over 5 horses, just don't blow it all in the first one. Be like, oh, Factor File's a certainty for the Ballymore. And then obviously come the start of next year, Willie Mullins is firing out these Ballymore horses. Gordon Elliott's firing out these Ballymore horses. You're like, wow, that looks like a superstar. And you've already put a big stake on the first one. So this is just obviously my personal preferences. So that is Wednesday covered. And I hope you all enjoyed it. And it wasn't too long. And on to Thursday will be next for the Cheltenham Festival.